Oh my goodness. I'm actually holding back some tears right now. I'm feeling like we just met an angel. I probably said it 3 times on the podcast, but I'll say it again. Like, this woman is an inspiration. She does this beautiful fostering of now 10 children, and she understands their emotional needs, like probably not many parents actually understand. So, wow. Like, that was inspiring for sure.
Yeah, what a way to show up and make a difference for kids. And we've said this before. If we want to heal the world, we start with the children, and we start with eradicating child abuse in all its forms. And so for kids who end up in foster care, this can be really traumatic, but what if there's also these huge blessings in there? And what if you're someone who could do that? So thank you, Amy. Amazing.
The world is a lot right now. Are you feeling it? We all need new tools to help us walk through the chaos with grace, ease, and compassion for each other and for ourselves. In this podcast, you'll hear from parents, educators, and other experts who can bring perspective to the monumental job of parenting. It's time to level up and be warriors for our kids and our communities. This is the Warrior Parent Podcast. I'm Marci Mitchell.
And I'm Debbie DeMano. As parents, we understand that it really does take a village to raise our kids. We hope that this podcast serves to create and support that community for you. Join us as we discuss and practice our core tools, which are proven mind-body techniques that can be used by anyone to improve your life on a daily basis.
Welcome to the Warrior Parent Podcast. We're grateful that you're joining us today. And today we're going to be speaking with Amy Vale. Amy Vale is the founder of For the Cups, a company providing comfort essentials for nervous system care in people of all ages. Motivated by her experience as a foster parent, Amy transitioned from a successful marketing career with brands like Spotify and Charity Water to entrepreneurship to launch For the Cups. After undergoing foster care training and her own experience with ADHD, Amy knew that she found a gap in the market for nervous system care. Ain't that the truth? For the Cubs' hero product, Percy, which is a weighted plush bear named after her late grandfather, so sweet, embodies Amy's mission to provide comfort to anyone and everyone, no matter their age. So we're going to get into some great conversations with Amy. Thank you so much for joining us, Amy.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh my goodness. I think we might just have met an angel, Marci. Wow, like all the things, so many things to talk about. I was sort of trying to do a little prep for our conversation today, and I kind of didn't know where to start because you're doing so many amazing things. But I think the fact that we're having this conversation means that we're aligned, like we're aligned with tools for helping children. I mean, well, all ages, right? Marci and I say 0 to 80. Basically,
Yeah,
we all need a little emotional regulation for sure,
absolutely.
especially the way things are going on the planet right now. So this is prime time. But I'm excited to talk to you about the foster care. So I did a little bit of a deep dive, and we can talk about that later. But I'm curious how you made this change from having this big marketing career to deciding you're going to do this purposeful work.
Oh, that's a pretty big question. I think it was the culmination of a lot of things sort of happening at the right time. I had always wanted to create my own brand, having worked on so many amazing brands before. I was really inspired by being a part of the startup community, the impact you can have as a founder, but
Yeah.
never sort of had a crystallized idea of what I wanted to focus on. And as my husband and I moved away from New York and into Austin, Texas, our world sort of changed quite a bit because we had more space. New York was so anchored around work and hustle and being available 24/7
Yeah.
that being parents didn't feel like it was possible. And so when we got to Austin, it just felt like there was more space to consider that. And I had personally never wanted to be pregnant or have a biological child. I grew up on a vineyard in Australia, and we were lucky enough to have all of these people from all over the world coming to work on our property. And so we actually stayed in close contact with someone who ended up working in Africa and adopting a child from Africa. So adoption was something that was always sort of with me early on, and I saw the impact that that had on that child. And so that stayed with me for a long time. And as we started to explore what a family and our, the sort of makeup of our family could look like, foster care became more and more interesting because it wasn't just about raising a child, it was about supporting families. And that felt pretty powerful and pretty meaningful. And so as we started to do the training, I learned so much about nervous system care. And as someone who has lived with ADHD, anxiety, depression, all of the hard nervous system stuff, that was something that was really striking to me because I spent a long time in therapy doing the work. I feel like I say I got a PhD in knowing who I am. Because
Me too. Me too. 30 years of therapy. I'm right there with you. Yeah. That's why we're doing this right now. Yes.
Yep. Yeah. And so it was never something that was necessarily prevalent in that work. I understood about the nervous system, but not the significant role it played and how hard it is to retrain it to not constantly be responding to stress.
Absolutely.
And so the more that I learned about it, and not just in the context of caring for children from hard places, but just in general, I learned how important this was going to be and how important I think the idea of self-care is almost a disservice, particularly to women, because we're taught that having a massage or taking a nice bath or getting a manicure is going to do the trick.
No.
And that's just not how that works.
No.
It's nice try, but no. Yes.
Yeah. And nothing against massages or baths.
No,
it's all good too. But there's so much more to it.
Absolutely. And
it's
that's
interesting to hear you talk about it and how you came to this crux of nervous system regulation. And that's exactly why we're here, Debbie and I, because we were talking about teaching kids tools. And that's where we started, 7 years ago. But that's what it all comes back to: self-awareness and nervous system regulation. Because as Debbie always says, as we always say, it's an inside job. If you can just get to that place where you can, in spite of whatever's happening out there, you can regulate your own nervous system. That's it. You got the key to success on the planet, to peace, to calm, to centeredness. It doesn't matter what's going on out there, because that stuff is always out there. You can't control that, but you can control this when you learn how.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think that's the thing that's missing, is that there is this world where we are constantly being drowned with anxiety and stress and pressure and demands, and they're not going to go away. They're only going to get more consistent and more frequent and stack up. And so the more that originally, the interesting thing was I launched For the Cubs to focus on kiddos. And quickly, my customer base told me, no. Women would like Percy. And so the majority of my customers are 35 or older, and they're women.
That's awesome. We've almost done the identical thing with our marketing. We've gone through this whole thing, and I'm sure you could teach us quite a few things, and we could always take some advice for sure. But we started with teens, and then we found out, it can't be teens, it's got to be the family, and then we're marketing, we're trying to dial down, and now we're with the moms too.
Get them when they're young, get older. What about the men? What about and in the end, it is everyone needs it, but you gotta stay open to find out who resonates with the thing you're bringing. So it's wonderful to find people, because that's all you want, right? You want to make a difference for someone.
Well, I have to share this interesting story, because Marci and I, through this 2 years of doing this Warrior Parent podcast, have met all kinds of people from all over the world. And as much as Marci and I feel like we're in a completely different generation, very different way of raising children, and things not so good. And then we see younger people like yourself raising children and doing this conscious parenting thing, which is beautiful. And I have to tell you this story. So I was in Orange County yesterday in the airport. And if you've ever been to Orange County in the summer, it's every child going to Disneyland, right? And the hats, and the parents are they're fried, right? And the kids are screaming, and this little girl is, she's trying to get the backpack and it hits her in the head and she lands on the ground. And I mean, the dad's trying to pick her up and he's got the stroller and he's yelling at the mom. And like, it's just like, this is what's going on in the airport, right?
Yeah.
So at one point I'm in the line and this woman just screams at the top of her lungs at this little, like probably 4-year-old little boy. And all of Orange County Airport goes silent. Everything stops. Conveyor belt stops. Everyone's thinking something happened. And all I could see was this poor little boy standing there and he wanted to cry so badly. And he could see all of these people watching him and he didn't dare cry. And it was all I could do because I wanted to go ask the mom, can I help you with something? But I didn't, because sometimes that can make you feel like, oh, who are you? Like, don't do that. Right. So I just let it go. And I thought, oh my God, this is why we do this work and whatever. An hour later, I'm sitting there with my daughter, a bunch more parents and little kids. And this little girl is crying. She's probably about 3. And I see this dad and they're sitting in front of me. He's probably in his 30s, 40s, and she's crying. He's talking through it. He's letting her have the feeling. He's letting her cry and trying to understand and help her understand what her feeling is. And then the next thing I see them, he's breathing. He's going in through his nose, out through his mouth. In through his nose, out through his mouth. And then I see her doing it. And she's watching him and she's doing it. And then I see him pull her into his chest so she can feel him. He's regulating. They're regulating together. Oh my God, I was in tears. I'm like, okay, that's all I need to do is hang out in John Wayne Airport for about an hour and realize like we haven't lost it. There's still hope. And when I see people like you, another angel in the world, like understanding, like this is root cause. This is root cause of what is going on the planet Earth right now. We have not regulated our children,
We
right?
have not regulated ourselves. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, it starts there for sure. But now
it starts with you.
But now these kids are adults, right? And they're raising kids. So it's hard for the adults to go, oh, this is the way my parents did or whatever. Like,
absolutely.
Right.
And I think about the woman in the first scenario where she lost her temper and lost her cool. And I think about how much she must have been fighting for her life to hold that in. And while it wasn't necessarily the best option,
right,
because that kiddo is probably going to feel that in his body for a long time. Like
a long time. I'm still feeling it, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Right.
I think about the times where I've had a kid in a significant meltdown and nothing is working, and the energy and attention and focus it takes to regulate my own nervous system is exhausting. It's actually not necessarily the kiddo losing it that is taxing for me. It is me focusing on knowing how important it is to stay regulated and to keep my composure, because I know without that, they're going to be escalated for a significant amount of time longer.
Yeah. You end up amplifying the situation, right? Yeah. I'm like so curious about this whole foster care thing. I have to admit, it's not something I've ever thought of. And I honestly didn't think I was that great a parent. Here I am doing a Warrior Parent podcast, but I'm like, I don't think, God bless them, but I'm not sure I can do it. Right. Just, I'm a little high strung myself, but, I was looking at the number of kids in the United States that are in foster care. 2025 is 400,000. And 100 and basically 20,000 are still waiting for adoption. That's a lot of kids. That's a lot of kids just waiting. But like, so talk about some of the challenges. Talk about like what it takes for someone to do what you do and going through this adoption process, or it's not adoption, excuse me, sponsoring a kid.
Yeah, foster care is incredibly complicated. It's very nuanced. It varies state to state. I can share sort of my experience in Texas foster care. But every state has different minimum standards, requirements, all of that kind of stuff. So anyone who's listening who is familiar with foster care in a different state and they're like, that's not how it works, it's probably because we're in different states. But I think the complexity is that until you are in foster care, you have no idea about the alternate universe of struggle that exists. And it's such a privilege to not know what foster care is and how it works.
Wow. Wow.
Like truly, like
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
one of those things where you go into foster care thinking we're just gonna like help these kiddos and we're gonna, you know, love them and support them and
Yeah.
provide them with a safe space and, you know, all of those things. And one of the nuances and complexities that you get into with every single case is that there are a lot of parents who have also experienced foster care themselves as children.
Oh, so
So
it's cyclic. So it's a generational.
100%.
Oh, that's fascinating. I had no idea.
And what happens
Yeah.
is that there is now a pretty big focus on family preservation, which is super important, and I don't disagree with that.
Mhm.
However, the complexity starts to come when you're reunifying children with their parents, and then there is no support afterwards. There are no checks and balances to make sure that they have the village around them that everyone needs, that
Right.
they desperately need, because oftentimes a case is usually 12 to maybe 18 months in most cases. There's always room for exceptions, but for the most part, the state loses jurisdiction after about 18 months. And
Mhm.
so if they haven't been able to come to a conclusion, the case ends, child goes back, and that's it. And so if you are leaving a family who has, even if it's like best case scenario, and they have worked every service, they have called on every support,
Yep.
if they have had a lifetime of trauma and they are
Yeah.
carrying generational trauma on top of that,
Yeah.
the expectation that someone can work through that in 12 to 18 months is setting them up for failure.
Yep.
Mhm.
And so 9 times out of 10, the child will return to foster care and be bounced around the system.
Yep.
I got a call last week for a previous case that left us and has returned back into the system.
Mm.
And it's so hard not to say yes every single time we
Yeah.
get a call. But
Right.
we also have a responsibility to a child that is currently in our care who has a
Right.
very similar circumstance. And the struggle is every team is different. So because as a foster parent, I'm not a legal party to the case. I'm caring for the child. I'm with them every day. I know
Oh,
them inside and out, but I have no voice in that case whatsoever.
right.
Hey, we just wanted to take a quick moment to tell you about something very exciting that Debbie and I and our team have been working on for literally years. And that is our Cour Tools app, which is now available at the Google Play Store and at the Apple Store. And you can sign up for it now and you will get access to all the tools we've been talking about on the podcast.
And if you're an early adopter of Cour Tools, you can get a VIP price for $49 for a lifetime. That's
Lifetime.
right.
Buy it once and we'll keep
Lifetime.
updating it too.
Yes. So we're super excited about this. Go to Apple Store, go to Google Play, and purchase it now.
Cour Tools, COUR, capital TOOLS.
Go get it.
So
So how much do you know? Are you able to understand about what may have happened to them, like any sort of abuses, or so you at least you know what you're dealing with a little bit? I mean, do you have historical information so that you know?
we have as much detail as what's in the affidavit that prompted the removal. And that's really the bare bones. It's not usually the level of detail you need to tailor the care. I've had a kiddo that has had a number of different challenges, none of which were documented, because what is really focused on is the things that the department has visibility into, but they don't have the full extent of their experience.
Of course
and
not.
so you're constantly stitching together clues so that you can figure out how to give them the support and resource they need. And that's the piece of it, I think, that is really complicated in the first sort of 6 months sometimes. Sometimes it's quicker. Little kids are a little easier because they rely on you so much for everything. That it's easier to learn them a lot faster. The older kids, they're more protective. They have walls up. They've learned not to trust adults. And
Yeah.
so it takes a lot longer to reach them and actually
Yes.
get to know who they are as people. And so the work is really to start with knowing the background, but sometimes that's actually less helpful because
Yeah.
you're focused on what happened to them and not actually how they're showing up in front of you and how they're coping with it.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's amazing. I was some of the statistics I was looking at was and I was actually a little surprised by this that 50% of the kids go back to their biological parent and 25% of them are adopted by the foster parent, which is amazing too. Like I would have to imagine I like for me if I fostered a child, I don't think I could let the child go, honestly. Like that's a whole thing too. Like talk about that. Like you put all your energy, all your love, everything you have into this child, and then at some point you say goodbye. Like how
Yeah.
how does that go?
It's a loss. It's grief.
Oh,
That's
oh,
the best way I can describe it. And the strangest experience is that when someone passes away, it's like you just like you're able to accept the loss. They're no longer here. The the reality of giving back a child to their family, which is a
The
wonderful
goal.
thing. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the goal of
Yeah.
foster care. But the
Right.
idea of this person that you have loved unconditionally for however
mm,
long they've been with you, and you know they're walking around somewhere out in the world, but you don't know who they're with, you don't know if they're okay, you don't know how they're doing.
yeah.
That's the hard part because they're still
Mhm.
here.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that's the term angel, Marcia. I'm gonna say it again.
Yeah.
Like wow.
Yeah. And it's so
Wow.
important because, I think we all know that there's a lot of abuse in the foster system as well. And so, we talk about you just gave 50%, 25% get adopted, 50% go back to family. That means there's 25% who spend their childhood in foster care. And I don't know a lot about this. I've just, seen bits of this, but we know that people get paid to do foster care. And
Mhm.
so, and that makes sense. You need money to support that, but that there are people abusing that who are really
Yes.
there to get the money and they're not providing the kind of care that these kids need, which is just re-traumatizing these kids.
Yeah.
So it is when Debbie calls you an angel, it's so important for good people, loving people with this calling in their heart to open their homes, to find a way to do this good work with the intention of getting them back to their family, if that's what's best for the child. But I guess really the real intention is just giving them a place where they can be safe and be a kid.
Yeah.
It's so important. So as if anyone is hearing this, as we talk about this, if this is tugging on your heartstrings and feeling like something that you could do, I would just encourage you to look into it, just to make a phone call to
Yeah.
the system within your state and start to look into, is it something you could do?
Yeah.
Because we need loving, supportive parents who can or foster parents who can show up and do this and provide this safe space for kids. And that's going to change everything for that kid. It's like the story of the little girl throwing the sand dollars back into the ocean. You're never going to get them all, or it's not going to make a difference, but it made a difference to that one. You
Yeah.
can make a huge difference in the life of just that one kid, even if you did it one time and you
Yeah.
provided a safe space. It changes everything. A child feeling safe and regulated as their brain is developing, as they're growing up, is going to change their whole life path
Yeah.
forever. There's nothing more important than the nurturing of the first 18, really 25 years, but that childhood, so that they can go out into the world as an adult who feels safe and cared for and regulated and isn't in trauma all the time. That's how we change the world, one person at a time.
Yeah. Totally.
I
Yeah.
was also reading as you're talking about people, attempting to do this, that the rate of people who try to do this and cannot do it is the majority, right? There's
Oh,
so
that's
many,
interesting.
yeah, but so many people just can't do it. Like their heart is into it. But it's like Amy was saying, it's the lack of training, right? So if it
Mm,
weren't someone like Amy who's done all this personal work, they could just be completely overwhelmed with it. They've got old school, like, oh, spank them and slap them and do all the things that people did back in the day, right? And they can't do it. And then the lack of resources. So like, who does Amy get to support her when she has a child that she can't control? So I guess there's people certainly who are willing to give it a shot, but many quit.
Yeah.
What are the resources? And I know again, you're speaking for Texas, but do you receive help with that kind of stuff, especially when you first got started?
It depends on your agency. And this is like the night and day experience that we had. The first agency that we were trained with, which was recommended like on the list of agencies that we should explore from the department, they were shut down for embezzling money.
Oh.
So they were keeping the money they should have been giving to foster parents.
For the kids.
I was just like, you can't make this stuff up. Like, this is movie-based stuff. It was ridiculous and shocking and so
Fucking
heartbreaking.
capitalism.
It was just one of those things where I was just like, what? How do you get involved in business in the most vulnerable population?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, that's terrible and gross, and I still hope that they feel incredibly terrible about it.
And that's a whole other topic. The people who do that, who prey on vulnerable people to make money, and it's whether it's elders or people who are being scammed, or so that's horrible.
Yeah.
Changing to a new agency, the caseworker that we had who was at the dodgy agency, she was an angel, because the leadership was trying to hide everything that was happening. She picked up the phone and said, this is what's happening. I'm going to help you find another agency.
Oh, nice.
We don't want to lose you in the system because you're a precious resource to the kids. And so she called around and interviewed agencies for us.
Nice.
Wow.
And so now we're with an agency who they specialize in serving kids. Like, this is the only thing that they do. They have a residential treatment facility. They have been established in the area for, I think, 100 years. Like, it's like, this is what they've dedicated their service to.
Wow.
They're a nonprofit. Like, all of these things that are completely different. They have a clinical director on staff who just focuses on that aspect. Like, it's a completely different experience. But they are incredibly supportive of their foster parents, because if you need a break, that we call it respite in foster care, you can call up and say, hey, I need these dates, and these are, like, this is the time I need off. And in foster care, it can be up to 14 days at a given time. That the child can be in respite. So you can take a good little break there.
Wow.
And the maximum for the year, I believe, is 40 days. So you can still, like, my husband and I generally sort of try and do short periods for once a month, just so we can have that reset break. And it's also not super disruptive to the child either, but that's just what we've found works for us. And if you need it more, you can ask for it and get that scheduled. There was, seasons where some kiddos that I was caring for needed a lot of support, and my husband travels for work a lot. And so oftentimes I'm flying solo. And so sometimes it's just like a matter of being able to, like, I'll pop the kiddo with another family for a weekend and I'll lay down flat for 48 hours.
Good for you.
Now that's self-care.
Good for you. Yeah, because otherwise you couldn't do it, right? You'd be burned out. You couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah, I can't stay calm and regulated when the child is screaming and throwing themselves on the ground, because I don't have any capacity for it. So the breaks are important. And I think the other piece of it is the resources, is like the difference that the team makes is night and day. I've had teams where they're like, you're interfering, stay in your lane, which means like, get out of our business, get out. Like, that's their sort of bottom line. Like, we're the professionals, this is our job, off you go.
Yeah, right.
But I've also had teams where they're like, give us your feedback. What does the child need? How can we help you? Night and day. Like, I've had one case where I didn't ever meet the child's lawyer in person ever. And the child was in my care for over 6 months.
Wow.
And then I've had an attorney show up at the house 2 weeks after placement and has come consistently and is always checking in with me and asking how she can help.
Yeah.
Nice.
totally different. And
Yeah.
that's the person that's representing the child in court. Like it's their entire life, and like the difference between someone choosing to have a 5-minute Zoom with me at the minimum standard checkpoint, which was after 6 months, or the attorney that chooses to show up and like meet and be with the child, make sure that
See the home. Yeah.
night and day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious about Percy.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to
I think
hear a
I'm
little
gonna
bit about.
I'm gonna be buying a Percy for myself, actually.
Yeah,
Yes.
tell us about that. How that works.
Yes. So Percy is got one here.
Oh.
Oh,
So he
does
has
have grandpa vibes.
he has little weights in his paws and in his feet and in his body. So he's designed to mimic a hug. We need 8 to 12 hugs as humans for emotional well-being every single day.
Yep.
Yeah.
And another thing I learned in foster care, like training, it's one of those things that, you know, as humans, we need connection. And the deep pressure therapy of a hug offers that regulation, that connection, the support. And sometimes we don't have that luxury of always getting those 8 to 12 hugs. We don't have pets or a partner or a friend that's able to meet that need. And so Percy is that resource. Sometimes it's like you don't actually want a hug from a person. You just want to like be left alone. But Percy is that alternate resource. You can warm him up, pop him in the freezer if you want. A lot of women going through perimenopause like to use him for comfort and for the cooling.
Relatable.
And I totally dig that. I love it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big piece is like the resource that Percy can be for some people. It's a nurturing, comforting, like this is my cozy space. For other people, it's very utility. Like I put it in the freezer and he helps me cool down while I'm experiencing insomnia at night, and I can get a better night's sleep.
Yeah.
But that ability for Percy to offer support, you know, when you design a product, I hadn't designed a product before, so this was a whole new world to me. And I wished and hoped that, you know, it would be a wonderful resource for people. But the impact that Percy has had just based on reviews and customers just emailing me, saying like, this is how Percy has helped me, has blown, it's like beyond my wildest dreams. And so I'm so like honored that this idea has turned into this like comforting space for people so that they can show up in the world exactly as they are, not the person that they are underneath all the stress, you know, like, because you can show up a different person when you're regulated and you're calm.
So true.
And clear.
Yeah, absolutely true.
And your grandfather would be proud, right? It was named after your grandfather. That's such a cute name. I know.
Yeah.
I'm going shopping right after we finish.
Yeah. How do people get a Percy if they want, if they need a Percy hug? How do they get that?
Yeah, just visit forthecubs.com.
forthecubs.com. Okay. That's wonderful, Amy. Thank you. Thank you, honestly, for just doing this good work, for saying yes to helping these kids, as well as for coming up with Percy. But it's really, it's one of those things. It's just a one at a time, and you're making a difference in a number of kids' lives. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, warrior moms. As we started this podcast, we had determined that part of what we were going to do is to create a community. So we have decided to take it to another level, and we have started our own Facebook community in addition to the Warrior Parent Podcast, and it's called
From Chaos to Calm, a sanctuary for moms. Here's what it looks like. It's on Facebook right now. Please go and join it. And just to let you know, we're going to create our Blue Sky accounts right now. We're getting prepared as we watch this weird stuff go on in America. So we may be shifting the whole group to Blue Sky. Just be aware that we got you. We're going to start here. If this turns out to be not a safe place anymore on Facebook, then we will shift over. But what we're creating is a safe space where moms can show up and get information, get support, talk to each other about the things you're going through with your kids, the things you went through with your kids, maybe get some advice from moms, but also other experts. We're going to invite all of our guests and experts to join the group. I hope you will too. This is a place where you can show up and be seen and be heard and be safe. Mom's got you.
Nobody trusts anyone more than moms. So let's do this.
And now for your core mental health break. This is your opportunity to take a moment to support your mental wellness, your peace of mind, your own ease and grace. Take some time every day to support your mental health. You deserve it, and it matters.
Today's affirmation is, everyone deserves love, including me. Say it aloud. Everyone deserves love, including me. Everyone deserves love, including me.
Thanks for listening to the Warrior Parent Podcast, which is a production of our nonprofit, Cour Experience, who also creates and distributes Cour tools. You can find us at courexperience.org. Make sure you join us next week for another informative conversation to help you and your family show up mindfully, purposefully, and joyfully with each other and in your community.
Our Cour Tools platform consists of a number of proven tools and techniques that are designed to reduce stress, anxiety, and overwhelm in spite of what's going on in your world. We want to thank Samuel Hale, LLC, for sponsoring this podcast. Technical and marketing support comes from Inspire Your Brand. Our podcast editor is Justin Beeden. Opinions expressed by guests do not necessarily reflect those of the hosts, the producers, or the financial supporters. I'm Debbie DeMano.
And I'm Marci Mitchell. Thanks for listening. If you resonate with the idea of creating a community to help support kids and families, won't you join us by following the podcast and sharing this episode? You can even write a review. It truly does take a village, and we appreciate you.